matter. Why are you guys so interested in the sex of these kids or their sexual orientation? Why are adults coming from where they're supposed to be as adults, coming down to worry about kids at an age where they're not supposed to be having sex, period, until they're married? Remember that? See, when I was going to school, they didn't give a damn if you was 13 or 14, if you was gay or straight. They was telling us all not to have sex. They wasn't going to gay kids saying, oh, yeah, you gay. Oh, here you go. Love you. Giving them awards and running them around the red carpet and all kind of shit. What? So you mean to tell me these 13 and 14-year-old kids actually had sex already? Or it's just the ideal in their head that they're gay? So y'all are promoting children having sex as teenagers? I'm just asking, which one is it? Did they actually have gay sexual intercourse to know that they're gay? And are y'all promoting that at that early of an age? Because I don't think minors should be having sex. They're not at the maturity level. Remember, the brain doesn't develop until you're 25. So you guys promoting sex, or you guys promoting the ideal that they're gay? Do they even understand what it means? Or are you guys just trying to feed it to them what it means? Because I'm confused.
Gender dysphoria is a condition where a person's physical, biological sex is one, say a boy, but in the person's mind, they think they're really a girl, or vice versa. It's not something that you can identify on any objective test. You can't do a blood test, for example. You can't do MRI imaging. You can't do genetic testing to actually find this gender identity. My name is Dr. Michael Laidlaw. I'm an endocrinologist in Rockland, California. This gender identity, which is really a child saying, I believe I'm this, I believe I'm a boy, I believe I'm a girl, something opposite of their body. Once they say that, they go down this road of gender affirmative therapy. That consists of social transition, wearing, say, stereotypical clothes of the opposite sex to pretend that they're the opposite sex, then these puberty blockers, then these cross-sex hormones, and then finally surgical modifications to the body to try to make the person appear that they're the opposite sex. Puberty blockers are powerful hormones. They act on a small gland in the brain called the pituitary, and this controls the sex organs. For example, testicles make testosterone, ovaries make estrogen, and the pituitary controls that happening. Now, these blockers stop this action, and then whereas, say, a girl is in age 9 and continuing or beginning to develop in puberty and should continue on until a full adult woman, it's stopped. Once you stop it, there are various harms and problems that occur afterwards. Unfortunately, many of our professional organizations are advocating for this, including Endocrine Society. And it's important to bear in mind that there's very small groups of people controlling these societies. Small groups of people are making these pronouncements, and then when physicians want to turn to what's the best practice, they're finding these things. And there's no rigorous research done. There's no controlled studies. It's very poor research, but it's, I guess, politically correct to go down these roads by these organizations. Doctors will feel compelled to follow what their organization says without really looking into the evidence necessarily. There is heavy-duty propaganda basically going on, but these gender clinics have sprung up and have multiplied all across the country. The numbers are going up. Around the world, in the UK, Canada, here, other places, more and more kids are being diagnosed with this. And there's a social contagion component, kids going on to, YouTube, Tumblr, things like that. So the cases are rising. It's a major problem that we have to address. In my practice as a physician, I always look at side effects of medications before I give anything to anyone. Say for diabetics, I always tell them, if you can work on your diet and exercise first, I'd rather have you do that than take these medications, because there's side effects and there's problems that are potential. But if you need it, then you need to take it. With this, I can see no need to take these medications. I see the risk as being very high, and I see children as a very vulnerable population, can't speak up for themselves, and their parents are often propagandized by this movement. I've met a lot of these parents. My heart goes out to them. I've seen their kids and pictures of their kids, and really, it's about helping kids.
Ruby began identifying as male at 13 years old. Now 21, she'd been planning to have surgery to remove her breasts. But in May, she made the decision to come off testosterone and detransition to identify as female, her sex at birth. She doesn't want to be identified, so we've changed her name.
I figured it would be better for me to try to deal with my gender dysphoria in a different way, rather than permanently changing my body.
How much support did you feel was out there for you when you came to this conclusion?
I didn't feel like there was any support out there, other than like a few friends online.
Ruby now feels her eating disorder was more of a factor than she first realised in her gender dysphoria.
None of the therapists that I spoke to brought that up. They didn't think that it was linked.
Do you?
I think so, yes, because they're both kind of based in how I feel about my body, so I've seen similarities between the two.
Charlie Evans is forming a charity to support people in Ruby's position. After going public with her detransition story, she discovered an online community of 5,000 in a similar position, 30 people alone in her area of Newcastle.
I was approached by a young woman with a beard, and she hugged me and said, I'm a detransitioned woman as well, I've just stopped taking testosterone. And after that I felt like I had to do something. I'm hearing from hundreds of people, and I think some of the common characteristics are they tend to be around their mid-20s, they're mostly female and mostly same-sex attracted, most are lesbians, and often autistic as well.
The Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust told us the experience of regret described here is extremely rare. Their gender identity service for children in Leeds and London now has a record number of referrals. The clinics here and in London see 3,000% more patients than they did 10 years ago. Among girls, referrals are up more than 5,000%. There's no question this service is helping children who feel distressed in their own bodies. But the full impact of children making decisions about their gender at such young ages may not truly be clear until much later in their lives. At 21, it's had a positive outcome for Jamie and his mum. After testosterone and surgical treatment, he's far happier than the torment of his teenage years.
It was kind of hell, like, it's just not something you'd want to go through if you were trans, like me. It's just, it's awful, like, everything that happens to you within that stage of puberty for a female, for a trans man, it's awful.
There's currently no data for how many in the trans community detransition, and to talk about it can be viewed as transphobic. But people like Ruby say more discussion is needed, as well as more options for people with gender dysphoria.
People need to know what the science is on this, what the medicine is, what the philosophy is. And the best science shows that 80 to 95% of children with a gender identity conflict will grow out of it. The best science shows that 41% of people who identify as transgender will attempt suicide at some point in their lives. And that people, after they have sex reassignment surgery, 19 times more likely to die by suicide. Those statistics are tragic, and we need to, hit the pause button and think more critically about how we can help people who are suffering.
Next, a 23-year-old woman is taking legal action against an NHS gender identity clinic, saying that she should have been challenged more by medical staff about her decision to transition to a male as a teenager. A judge gave the go-ahead last week for a full hearing of the case against the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, which is expected to go to the heart of the controversy surrounding the age at which young people become capable of giving informed consent to medical interventions to help change their gender. In a moment, we'll speak to the boss of the clinic, Dr. Polly Carmichael. But first, let's hear from the woman. She's called Kira Bell. She's now 23, and she started taking puberty blockers aged 16, followed by cross-sex hormones, testosterone in her case, and she had a double mastectomy. Kira Bell has been speaking to the BBC's Alison Holt.
I would have liked to have, some sort of intensive therapy, really. I think that I should have been challenged on the proposals or the claims that I was making for myself, and I think that would have made a big difference as well.
There will be young people who say going to the clinic literally saves their lives because it is essential someone listens to them and believes their need to change. What would you say to that?
Well, I did say the same thing, years ago when I went to the clinic. It felt like, it was saving me from, suicidal ideation and just depression in general. And, at the time I felt like it relieved all of those mental health conditions that I was, struggling alongside, gender dysphoria. It's something you need to kind of work through, but it's not something that should be rushed into. I think it's up to these, institutions like the Tavistock to step in and make children reconsider what they're saying, because it is, a life-altering path that you're going down. You step in and make children reconsider what they're saying, because it is, a life-altering path that you're going down, and it's not guaranteed to work.
Do you feel any anger about what's happened in the last 5-10 years for you?
I do, yeah. I feel angry that, no one was there to really say any different, and I was allowed to run with this idea that I had, or, almost like a fantasy as a teenager. I was allowed to run with that, and it has affected me in the long run.
Are you a woman?
Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman. My brain is much more female than it is male.
Ladies and gentlemen, the courageous, the stunning Caitlyn Jenner.
We're ruining an entire generation of children. I find even hearing about it and reading about it so repugnant and so destructive to children.
A month or so just hearing the reports of the parents and reading the original study. There's an original study that the book is, jumps off from, which is the Lisa Littman paper at Brown University. She's a public health researcher who looked into this, and she found that there was all of a sudden this huge epidemic in America of teenage girls deciding they were trans with their friends after social media emerged and pushing for hormones and surgeries.
Have you had a conversation about this with someone who's a trans activist that says, well, maybe what's really going on, I'm just taking the argument of it, maybe what's going on is there are a lot of trans women and there would be more, or there's a lot of women who would turn trans, become a man, there would be more, but they never had that door open to them before, and that maybe there's more trans people than we think. Amazing.
So it's a great point, and I thought about it because I tried to look. I'm a journalist. I like to look at ideas on both sides. I did not have a dog in this race. So let me tell you 3 reasons I don't think that's compelling. Number one, when Lisa Littman looked at the prevalence rate, she found that it's 70 times what we would expect within a friend group, which means it's highly concentrated in groups of friends. But there's 2 other reasons. So we wouldn't expect that if it were randomly distributed among the population. But there are 2 other reasons I don't think that's right. Number one, if we're just reverting to normal now that there's greater societal acceptance, right? We're just reverting to a normal base rate of transgender women. Why are all the women in their 40s and 60s coming out as trans? They should be coming out. Now's their time. Now's their moment. We should see tons of women in their 40s and 60s and so on coming out as transgender. We're not seeing that. We're seeing the same population that gets involved in cutting, demonic possession, witchcraft, anorexia, bulimia, and convinces themselves there's a problem.
My name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So I was over Memorial Day weekend hanging out with my family, and one of my nephews, he pretended he was a dog. And you ever do that with a little kid when they're like, I'm a puppy, and you're like, okay, and you have the ball, and you throw the ball, and they come back with it, and you're playing around. At one point, it was time for supper, and so I was like, okay, buddy, time to get up, wash your hands, get ready for supper. He's like, no, I'm a puppy. And I'm the fun uncle. That's what priests are, the fun uncle. So I'm like, I'm not going to correct this kid. I just kind of directed him to his parents, and his parents were like, listen, you're a little boy, you're not a dog, wash your hands and sit at the table. And I thought, all right, that's good. That's good parenting right there. Where, here's the kid. He really thinks he's a dog, but the reality is you're not a dog. And I was thinking about this and thinking about that love that my nephew's parents have for him when it comes to this big thing in the news, of course, which is Bruce Jenner. Or anyone else who experiences the sense of being transgendered. The idea that Bruce Jenner's case, I have a man's body, but I'm not really a man. I've always felt like a woman. People will say, are you very judgmental? Here's what I'm saying. That I have no judgment on this.